In at 10, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the two primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is one of the final animatronics in the game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits, but similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has a majority of his right ear missing. Overall, he has rips, but not any real missing limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics in the first 4 nights of this game. His face glows white, which is noticeable when he's in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance and pushes the something supernatural that most of the Shadow animatronics have, like with Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes the role of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5, which means that he's very fast, so the player needs to seal the vent quickly, otherwise you'll get jump scared. He also may appear in the hallway, but if he does, never use your flashlight, otherwise you'll get insta-killed. Instead, you need to inspect his face when he appears there, and if he's twitching, close the door. A rattling sound will be heard so that you know he's left. And the fact that you need to look at his face to see if you're in danger just makes this even scarier, especially considering the fact that most of what you need to do relies on fast reflexes, and then you're just sitting there trying to figure out if he's really twitching or if that's just you going crazy. Not from personal experience, I don't know. What? In at 9, Fredtrap. To be honest, I searched this up just for the hell of it, and there actually are Fredbear versions of Springtrap, which is kinda cool, but I mean, kind of expected. Fredtrap is exactly what you would expect. Springtrap's look on a yellow Freddy animatronic. The designs are actually really well made and honestly are scarier than normal Springtrap for me. I mean, I don't know, I guess for some reason I think bears are scarier than rabbits. Don't know why I would think that. But I think that Scott made William use the Spring Bonnie suit because of how scared Scott himself was of it, but that could also just be idle speculation. There's another theory that I have that maybe he was going to use the Fredbear animatronic, but then after his son got killed by it, he switched to Bonnie. There are also even more rundown versions and even scrap versions of Fredtrap, which are already haunting when you don't think about the fact that it would still be William inside the suit being kept alive by the spirit of his dead kid. Yeah, so Fredbear is definitely one of the more strangely unique versions that I've seen for this list, and you know what? I'm pretty damn impressed. These designs are pretty good. In at 8, Grim Fredbear. Grim Fredbear is one of the antagonists in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. He's only active on night 5 and is found by the left hallway. Grim Fredbear resembles the normal golden Fredbear, only with his suit glowing a deep purple color, while the interior of the suit glows a bright white. His upper face appears to be torn off, including his eyes, leaving an empty, hollow, gaping hole in its place, and the inside of the mask, though it appears like there is nothing inside, actually conceals a white, pale human head that can only be seen during the jump scare. And before you ask, yes, it's mine. I was going to make that a joke, but I actually wrote that into the script. Holy crap. This animatronic is clearly meant to be a reference to Shadow Freddy and the theory that the Shadow animatronics are Springlock victims, which was confirmed to be false by Scott when he stated that William was a Springlock failure, but still, okay? On the museum level of Final Nights, which unlocks after night 5, it is revealed that Grim Fredbear is a Springlock victim, saying, quote, another Springlock failure victim, the second generation of Fredbear. In at 7, Shadow animatronics. One of the oldest theories is that the Shadow animatronics are the first Springlock victims, and while they are from the main FNAF universe, this is a fan theory, so it counts. This comes to us after the FNAF 3 phone guide dialogue that mentioned multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures, which some interpreted as multiple Springlock suits failing at once, since the term Springlock in this situation is used to describe the suit as a whole, and instead of the individual Springlock mechanisms that are present within the suit. So the line of multiple and simultaneous Springlock failures could mean multiple of the Springlocks inside one suit failing at the same time, or more than one suit failing at the same time. This led some to theorize that previous employees were killed in the Springlock suits, which is where the Shadow animatronics come from. This is supported by the fact that these shadows are of Freddy and Bonnie, the two animatronics that have Springlock versions, and while there are holes in this theory, this is, like, potentially the case. It's an idea at the very least. So yeah, Shadow animatronics are fan Springlock victims because it's not confirmed. That's how I made it work. In at 6, Golden Call. As a human, when alive, Golden Call's name was Kyle. However, now he is a Springlock victim stuck inside a Golden Freddy Springlock suit. Golden Call has the typical rundown Springlock suit vibe, similar to Springtrap. However, this is even more gruesome. His left ear is bent, he has bugs coming out of basically every hole in his body, human eyes are hanging out of the animatronic's eye sockets, he's missing the exosuit on his right foot, and his character is holding a flesh-colored, at least colored, it's probably flesh-made, let's be honest, phone in his right hand that stays stuck to his head via more flesh or like blood tendril strands connecting to the side of his head, okay? It's horrifying. It's a monstrosity. And looking at his age on the wiki, Kyle was only 5 years old when he got spring locked, which is absolutely nuts and just flat out horrible. So yeah, it's unfortunate. Yikes. This kid could have been the next best Fortnite player. Halfway through into number 5, Grim Chica. The first spring lock victim in the Final Night series, Grim Chica is the primary antagonist in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awaken. Unlike the others though, she is not a Reaper animatronic. Grim Chica holds a strong appearance to the spring lock suits on the poster in the Night 3 cutscene, but her face plates are very hard to spot. She is also almost entirely purple. The glowing accents inside her suit resemble a human corpse. She lacks a bib unlike the original Chica, and overall her body is very slim like the original toy Chica, except for her hips, which appear to be much wider, which is making me all sorts of confused. And she lacks shoulders or upper arms, with her forearms protruding from her armpits. So yeah, not confused anymore. Grim Chica is also revealed to be a springlock victim in the museum level, saying, quote, a victim of a springlock failure, forever forced to haunt the suit she was wearing, now being manipulated by your sister and mother, tried spray on tan, still very pale. Why is this relatable to me? Why are these two the two springlock victims from Final Nights 3 so relatable? No matter what I'll do, I'm always gonna be pasty, and you know what, I'm okay with that. However, I did rank this above Grim Fredbear because it's Chica. And look at how they massacred my baby. Oh man, I'm sorry, mommy. These transgressions will not be accepted. In at 4, Am I Real? Am I Real, also known as Cake Bear, is presumably the primary and most recurring antagonist in Dormitibus. Am I Real has 2 different forms. His first form is Cake Bear, and Cake Bear's design originated from the Save Him minigame, where he delivered cake to children while someone is being killed outside. He's the predecessor to both Fredbear and Freddy Fazbear, but Cake Bear is a brown bear animatronic that also acts as a springlock suit that appears in most of the main nights. Although they look slightly similar, the only similarities it really has to Freddy is that they both possess a top hat, are brown, have blue eyes, and are a bear, which I mean, I guess is the whole character. Am I Real's second form is the form that resembles Springtrap. This form has a green color, much like Springtrap does, and actually contains human remains. Great. His right eye socket has gotten bigger on the side, and there's a big hole that can be seen on the right side of his head. His top hat has received some withering, because you know, it has a corpse inside. His lower jaw is slanted and worn down. He doesn't have it's not circular like Cake Bear's. He has a sizable hole in the right side of his torso as well, revealing organs. He has rips and tears covering his arms, revealing more human remains, and he just appears to be missing like a finger on his right hand for whatever reason. And you know what? No matter what, it's still terrifying to look at. And of course, 3 out of 10 of these are going to be from Dormitibus, okay? Because have you ever played Dormitibus? Have you seen these guys? They're terrifying. Just wait. Getting close to the end at number 3, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Stage Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity. But it's definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4, so let's focus on that one. He is 100% the scariest animatronic in this series. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare spring trap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is dark yellow in color. He sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, kind of like Glitch Trap. And then, like the other Reaper animatronics, Reaper Spring Bonnie has one pair of hollow, dark eyes that will steal your soul. I added that last part, but it's probably true. In Final Nights 4, his appearance is much more disfigured and gruesome, with sharper teeth, sharper claws, a different jaw, growths on his shoulders resembling fungi, and you know, a kind of a gooier appearance overall. It's like the slime girl from YouTube if she made a FNAF character. He's also missing half of his right ear like Springtrap in FNAF 3, and his suit is more greenish in color this time around to be more like Springtrap. And oh my god, this thing is still terrifying, and it's more terrifying than Springtrap, okay? This is what Springtrap should have been, or honestly, this is what I think like a Nightmare Springtrap would look like, okay? This is like a prototype Burn Trap in my eyes, or the way I'm thinking, like Melt Trap, the next iteration of Afton. But ultimately, in at number 2, Garvey. A psychopathic, cold-blooded killer, he stopped being human long ago. That's how Garvey is described in the extras of Dormitibus, okay? Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitibus. As a human, he was the man who murdered the missing children and later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap. He was then burnt to a okay, permanent death in the Fazbear Fright's fire, unlike our William Afton, but that's not only where he differs, because Garvey is more gooey, and he's a more gooey or gory version of Springtrap from FNAF 3, and it's also actually not William Afton, since this game was released before the official name reveal, even before FNAF 4, so yeah, he's Springtrap, but with hardly any exosuit or animatronic casing, whatever you end up wanting to call it. He crawls on all fours and uses his left hand as a foot and his left foot as a hand, like some demon monkey from hell that even Satan doesn't want around, okay? He's like trying to like send it away. He's like, yeah, no, don't. Like, you're seeing pictures, okay? Like, tell me, do you think that it shouldn't be on this list, okay? Because if you're saying that, you're lying. I can tell. And finally, in at number 1, you. Spoiler alert, for a fan game. The fan game, which if I say the name will spoil it, so if you want to avoid spoilers, just go to the bloopers, but like, thanks for watching. But either way, I'll give you the chance to do that. Okay, there we go. That was your chance. You're done. A Shadow Over Freddy's is a FNAF fan game created by Fiznam on Game Jolt. It was released on the 25th of April 2018. And you know, since it was made by the same guy who is currently working on FNAF Plus for the Fazbear fanverse, you know it's gonna be good. The gameplay of A Shadow Over Freddy's is a hybrid between a traditional point-and-click game and a free-roaming horror game. The player wakes up to find themselves with no memories in a black and white abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and is tasked with surviving 5 nights and escaping the restaurant. The player is given a different set of tasks each night and must complete said tasks before 6 AM and without being attacked by any roaming animatronics. However, the ending of this game has you getting trapped in a springlock suit and left to rot, meaning that you are a springlock victim, which is probably the scariest victim of them all. I don't know about you, some of you I do because I've seen the comments, but I would rather not get springlocked. It's also revealed that you are William Afton in this game, but you know what, it's you, so it's good enough for me. And 10, the scrap puppet. I don't know why, but like every version of the puppet that's intended to really be scary gives me the heebie-jeebies. And like this was only like a concept and like a fan art and didn't actually appear in any of the game, but that's not the criteria, okay? This isn't top 10 scary FNAF alternate fan puppets that appeared in games. No, it's just fan animatronics. And while some people may not be able to make a game from their creations, they can still draw them and still give me nightmares for all eternity, okay? But this is the most tame out of the bunch today. The scrap puppet was created by TFE Arts on DeviantArt and is really giving me some Venom symbiote vibes with all the tendrils coming off of their back. They are clearly meant to be present in FNAF 6 since, you know, they're at the review table and the only time we see scrap animatronics outside of Ultimate Custom Night is FNAF 6, so this is clearly meant to be the start of a jump scare while trying to salvage them, which is a whole other reason why it's terrifying. And the glowing green eyes are creepy, okay? And overall, just the ruined look really sets me on edge, okay? Like, especially when this man is very clearly juicing. Look at those pecs. And at 9, Blank. The Blank animatronic from Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is actually very unique in concept, no doubt being inspired by Mangle, but it's like Mangle and the puppet merged into one being, or at least in my mind, that's how it feels. And you know what? That makes it good enough for this list. Blank is a drawing attraction that is meant for children to write and draw whatever they want on its body, so technically they could draw the puppet tears, okay? So it counts. Over time, the animatronic is obviously withered down, and the withered version from the second game is probably what we're going to be focusing on for this number. The withered Blank is the most withered out of any of the animatronics. All of the suit parts seem to be damaged in one way or another. The large part of the left side of their head is gone, exposing an endoskeleton, and the left forearm and upper right arm are missing exoskeletons as well, while his right forearm is just gone. That's my left, but for you it's right, I'm pretty sure. That's how that works, I think. But all suit parts below his knees are gone as well, and there are like 2 holes in his torso, and one of the holes exposes endoskeleton, because you know, the more endoskeleton, the worse it is. His texture isn't white anymore, and it's rather more of a gray, kind of like the shirt you forgot to wash, that it just isn't the same anymore. Unless you use today's sponsor, I'm just kidding, okay? Blank can also be seen unwithered in the first minigame, and appears to be the same as he was in the first game's minigame, but in this Night 6 second minigame, the player can actually see his original appearance when he actually can be drawn on. Human whiteboard. That's not human, but robot. He's a smart board. And at 8, Crazed Shadow Puppet. So there are actually a whole series of these like shadow animatronics, and I love them. But for some reason, they kind of remind me of like Bendy and the Ink Machine vibes. I don't know, maybe it's like the wash of insanity, or maybe it's all like the dripping ink-like look kind of like on their faces. But yeah, it's definitely given me Bendy vibes, okay? Crazed Shadow Puppet is probably my favorite of all these Crazed Shadow animatronics, and we can actually kind of see that it's not, there's something disturbed about its grinning, okay? Why it has wide eyes, and if you look closer, you can see like the puppet faceplate cracked as well. Okay, it's a whole basket case, and you know what? I relate. This is how I feel on the inside, and you know what? Having to look at my demons, that's terrifying. Terrifying enough to earn you a spot on this list. And at 7, Vinny. Vinny is kind of like the counterpart to the FNAF 2 puppet, but in Five Nights at Candy's, okay? And just like their FNAF 2 counterpart, he has a white face, unlike the puppet actually has a sad face, or like a sad facial expression. He has dark purple lines around his mask, blue cheeks as opposed to the original pink or red ones, I guess. Vinny's lips are also blue, which gives him an overall gloomy feel, especially with the frown, but also concerningly reminds me of Riverdale Season 3. And while I did like some aspects of that season, this isn't the part that it's reminding me of. Also, like his normal FNAF series counterpart, he has a skinny body with long limbs and 3 long slender fingers on each hand. Vinny also has the same eye shape as his FNAF counterpart, which makes him kind of look angry when seen from certain angles. In FNAF 3, Vinny appears in the minigames as his normal version, while not appearing in the main gameplay itself, though his monstrous manifestation, which we'll go into later, is the final antagonist of the game on night 6. In the Fishing with Candy's glitch minigame, while at the FNAF 2 Freddy's location, Mary reaches into a room where the puppet was performing, and upon seeing it, it reminds her of Vinny. Just then, all of the kids in the room start to fade away, and the puppet then distorts rapidly into Vinny, which is just weird, and I don't want to think about it. And at 6, Glamrock Puppet. Okay, every time I make a list discussing creepy animatronics, the puppet makes its way onto it, so I figured I might as well just do a list, and hopefully it won't show its ugly head again. But you know what? That's not gonna happen. And a Glamrock Puppet is actually from a previous list, because this is just freaky. And while I do feel like the phone guy whenever I call the puppet creepy, that's because it is creepy. And the Glamrock Puppet is no exception. This character wasn't originated in the Fury's Rage minigame like I figured, but instead is just a separate design that no matter what just looks like it wants to bring me to the back of the pizza joint and show me how the pepperoni gets put on the pizza. And no, I don't mean literally. Yes, that was a reference. And not only does it come with its own creepy concept art, but it also comes with Minecraft skins, because of course it does. It also comes with loads of trauma, apparently. This is one of the weirdest versions of the puppet, not taking into account other versions that will appear later on this list, including the next number. But this is like the 4th weirdest, but like the 6th scariest, you know? So like, it feels wrong to me, okay? It does. Plus the whole pepperoni thing, although it probably wants salami or bratwurst. Halfway through into number 5, Reaper Puppet. Ah yes, my old nemesis. The Reaper Puppet, if you didn't know, was the first fan animatronic ever featured on this channel in the top 10 scary FNAF animatronics list ages ago. The first FNAF video by me on this channel was actually on January 29th, 2020. Can you believe that? And the video I'm talking about actually came out a month later on February 24th, 2020. So I have a long history with this character. The Reaper Puppet, along with Shadow Bonnie and the brother from Final Nights 1, are the only animatronics in the entire Final Nights series to start off a night outside. Reaper Puppet appears to be a counterpart to the original series Puppet, though it is, it's only the Reaper Puppet's head that looks similar to the core series. The rest of its body is a dark shade of black. It has long, stretching arms with sharp fingers and at the hands, and it's kind of like if the It's kind of like if the Grim Reaper had the Venom symbiote. That's kind of like the texture that these limbs kind of give me. It has multiple tentacle-like legs. It can easily be mistaken for a tree as well, as long as it looks like roots and, you know, the shoulders kind of looking like a branch, okay? But this thing is creepy. It's always creepy, so I included it on a list that shouldn't really have had fan animatronics, but I was so creeped out that I felt compelled to. Just like how kids at Fazbear Frights are drawn to the restaurants, I was drawn to the Reaper Puppet. And at 4, Withered Puppet. Okay, so the puppet has always been one of the most terrifying animatronics to me, and I'm sure plenty of you as well. At least until we found out that the puppet was actually supposed to be like the goodest boy. But this version really just horrifies me, and I mean, if I ever met it, I'm sure that it would actually like kill me. This is a withered version we have yet to see in the games, luckily, because the puppet's face is all torn up and its body looks as though it's been kind of like ground up. Like if you like, it's like those like shredder videos, you know, like 20-pound block of metal versus shredder. It's like that, but it was the puppet instead. It also appears to be it has a lot of wires sticking out. The teeth in its mouth are equally disturbing. Its wires also seem to be red and blue, unless that's just the lighting, but it still seems to be holding on to a few buttons on its chest somehow, despite having no external skin really on its waist. Just a bunch of exposed wire, and that doesn't sit right with me. That's no thanks. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Monster Vinny. Monster Vinny, also known as Monster Reverse Puppet, is the final antagonist of Five Nights at Candy's 3. He is the monstrous manifestation of Vinny, this game's version of the puppet, but instead of sharing the same eyes as Nightmare Yon and New Vinny, this part of the mask is just wide open. The eyes appear to be held up by a metal frame inside of the mask. The jaw appears to be able to move kind of like a dummy, and the mouth contains many sharp teeth, stained red at the tips with what I'm sure is definitely ink. Yeah, that's it. That's gonna help me sleep at night. Monster Vinny's mask also appears to be aged and like kind of like dirty, but like not aged in a good way like whiskey, but like just bad. He sports a blue bow tie with 3 white buttons, has purple blue coloring on his lips, again reminding me of Riverdale season 3, which I don't want to talk about, and his hands also seem to come to like points with blood on the ends of it too. I mean ink, it's ink, it's red ink. What am I talking about? It's Crayola sponsored. Monster Vinny is also very skinnier than me, if you can believe it or not, but while not the scariest animatronic, the jump scare for Monster Vinny is actually pretty damn terrifying. But ultimately, in number 2, Havoc Puppet. Havoc Puppet is responsible for the creation of every animatronic in Dormitibus, a FNAF 3 fan game, with the exception of one. Havoc Puppet is formed by a cracked and distorted version of the puppet's original mask, which is missing its lower half. So basically, the jaw up is, or like just the jawline up. That's where you get it. The head has a small hole above the place the mouth would be. Has 2 white pupils, which again, that's just creepy. Inside empty sockets, which presumably are gateways to the void. The lower missing half of the mask features 7 black-like tentacle extensions, like 3 at the back and 4 at the front. And then like the side 2 at the front are used as legs, while the other 2 seem to be like arm appendages, and then the back 3 seem to be tails, which is a whole other weird thing. Like why not have them all just be legs, for God's sakes? They also got a crack on the top of the head, okay? It's wrong, it looks like a giant messed up spider, and we all know how I feel about spiders. I hate them, but certainly when it's an animatronic puppet. And finally, in at number 1, Sinister Puppet. Sinister Turmoil is a fan game of the popular FNAF series, obviously. I mean, like, it's kind of obvious at this point. But this game features everything that you'd want from a free roam FNAF game, including multiplayer, your favorite characters from other fan games like Pop Goes and Ignited Freddy. However, the game was ultimately abandoned for various reasons, but the team is still working on their small snippet of the original game called Sinister Turmoil Sewers, which is actually going to be getting an update very soon. Known on the Sinister Turmoil wiki as the Crooked, Sinister Puppet is exactly like any Sinister animatronic, but the puppet. This version is very similar to their FNAF 2 form, although a little wider in the face this time around. They have the iconic sharp sinister teeth, which is kind of required by these guys, and just they're all around creepy and just wrong. Since there was never really a full game, we can't be certain what their mechanics or role would have been, but they definitely would have been an antagonist. And the eyes on this one are sharper, and they seem to be squinting, kind of like when Jack gets angry in A Nightmare Before Christmas, which is an overrated movie, but that's a whole other thing. And then he has like the classic puppet look aside from that, okay, with just a hint of red on the bottom of the teeth, which really drives in the fact that it is going to tear you to shreds. And it's Fredbear. Yes, this is a thing. Fredbear is an animatronic coming from the Day Shift at Freddy series, who was created by Dave by modifying a Fredbear suit. The character appears in Day Shifts at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. Fredbear's appearance is oddly similar to normal Fredbear, albeit this one is wider. He's a golden colored animatronic bear wearing a purple top hat and bow tie, and 2 black and white buttons along his chest. He has a gray metallic looking eyes, thicker arms and legs, he's kind of a chonky boy, and a squarish brown nose. Okay, his small brown round pupils, small white teeth, round ears, with the insides being like lighter shade. You know how you color ears on like animals and stuff, right? And then like cartoons, that's what this is. And a very circular shaped stomach with a couple of brown shades. He has ribs across his feet joints and like his arm joints, like at the elbow. He also appears for real when Dave modifies an empty Fredbear suit and unleashes it during the Sting operation on Friday, in which, depending on which route you actually took, it either will attempt to kill Jack, it will die, or it will just destroy the pizzeria joint and then set itself on fire. Love that. In at 9, Shadow Fredbear. Shadow Fredbear is one of the two primary antagonists in Final Night's 2 Sins of the Father. Shadow Fredbear is almost perfectly intact, only burnt black in color. He has a few rips on his body and is missing his left hand, but I mean the area around his mouth appears to be slightly torn as well, revealing a majority of his endoskeleton teeth. But other than that, the dude's fairly intact. His teeth and eyes also glow, which makes it easier to see, I guess. But like, imagine if this animatronic had gums, okay? That would be, whew. That would probably be the scariest thing I've ever seen. The absolute monstrosity that would have been created just by giving this Shadow Freddy gums is terrifying, okay? Like, every time you give something big gums, it makes it scarier. I don't know why. My genius is sometimes petrifying. But nonetheless, this is still creepy without the gums, especially because this dude is so powerful that he actually replaces most of the other animatronics on Night 5 of Final Nights 2. But, you know, if you saw other Final Nights lists, you'll already know about Shadow Freddy. In a Withered Nightmare. Now, there aren't many versions of Withered Nightmare, mostly because it's such an obscure thing to search, but honestly, I'm surprised that there were even a couple of these. Yet, somehow, Withered Nightmare makes Nightmare even scarier, despite him literally being the embodiment of death. With missing exosuit and the slightly transparent nature of the animatronic, plus the exposed bits and missing limbs, you know what, it always makes these characters a little bit more unsettling. Throw onto that Nightmare, the scariest animatronic in the series that literally will consume you if you fail to stop him. He is literally the embodiment of death. That's what the whole point of this series, this game is. If you lose to Nightmare, you die. Even if you win against Nightmare, you still die, but like still, okay? Even, especially with like the exposed brain, like man, can we move on? I don't like this one. This is not this. No thank you is a reason I didn't play FNAF 4 or any other one. Who said that? And at 7, Fred Trap. To be honest, I searched this up just for the hell of it, and there are actually Fredbear versions of Springtrap. And you know what? I should have figured that was going to be a thing, okay? Fred Trap is exactly what you'd expect. Springtrap's look on a yellow Freddy animatronic. The designs are actually really well made and honestly are scarier than normal Springtrap to me. And for some reason, I guess I just think that bears are scarier than bunnies, which I guess makes sense. I mean, like, I think that Scott used the Spring Bonnie suit to be William's kill suit because of how scared Scott himself was of Bonnie because of like the nightmares from the first game because of the jump scare. But again, that could just be me speculating. I mean, it absolutely is, but I mean, like, it's kind of like educated speculating. There are even more rundown versions and even scrap versions of Fred Trap, and honestly, they're haunting, especially when you don't think about the fact that it would still be William inside the suit being kept alive by the spirit of his dead son. You know the story. I mean, you're probably gonna fight me on it being his son, but you know what I mean. Fred Trap is definitely one of the more unique versions of Fredbear I saw for this list, and you know what? I'm pretty damn impressed. And at 6, Scrap Fredbear. Scrap Fredbear is probably the most unique design for a scrap animatronic that I've actually seen, okay? Most of the scrap animatronics have Scrap Baby's claw as a main feature. However, this one is incredibly horrific in the best way. One has a buzzsaw for a hand, which is extremely badass, but the others have severe withering on legs and around the stomach, and they all include the stomach mouth, of course, since, you know, Nightmare Fredbear has a stomach mouth, and is also the scariest Nightmare animatronic aside from, again, the one that's literally called Nightmare, which is just inverted Nightmare Fredbear anyway. But the big withered left hand and the stars coming off of him, they make him look far more menacing. Like if Nightmare Fredbear was an elementary school teacher who just loved giving out gold stars but then corrupted whatever these incredibly underprepared kids would have had to deal with. Okay, like I came out of high school not knowing anything about actual life, but then like you expect expect a group of 5 kids to take down some horrific, otherworldly being. Like, who are they supposed to be, Phineas and Ferb? Halfway through into number 5, stylized Nightmare Fredbear. There are so many different versions of stylized Nightmare Fredbear. I love it so much. I'm pretty sure the term stylized just means converting the character into your style of art, which makes the variety incredible to look at. From more cartoony but still horrific versions to a Frankenstein's monster looking version that will actually haunt me for the rest of my life. If this was in the Halloween DLC, I don't think that I'd actually be as into this as I am. Some of the teeth are actual monsters within themselves. Some are looking like monster animatronics, and then some are looking like they're gonna crawl out of my screen after calling me and saying that I have 7 days, okay? Nightmare Fredbear is one of the scariest animatronics to me, and honestly, I think that if I ever had to play that level in FNAF VR, I would actually piss myself, like not even joking. Okay, that's why I don't play FNAF VR. That's why I haven't actually tried to complete it. So I don't have to do that level and that level only. I also think that I'd be trash at the plush baby game, and I don't like being jump scared. But you know, it's mostly the bear thing, okay? It's mostly the Fredbear, okay? Fear is bad. Why do we like being scared? In a 4th, Sinister Fredbear. Ah yes, this Freddy versions list, or I guess Fredbear versions list, was missing a Sinister animatronic. So here we are with Sinister Fredbear. Had the game released, Sinister Fredbear would have been one of the most terrifying animatronics in Sinister Turmoil. Okay, it would have been a fan game. I don't know what makes this character so horrifying for me, but nevertheless, holy sweet niblets, Miley Ray Stewart, is this thing going to scare you? While there are really only 1 or 2 pictures of Sinister Fredbear, you can already get a sense for how terrifying this animatronic would have been. With the classic Sinister teeth, which at this point are basically signature, and more toy animatronic-like appearance for his casing, this guy would have made the game unplayable for me, okay? I already try and avoid Nightmare Fredbear in FNAF VR, like I said, because I don't want to deal with him. So Sinister Fredbear would have been a deal breaker, okay? And I didn't even know he was meant to be in the game. That would have been a sweet surprise. Close to the end in number 3, Paranormal Fredbear. Paranormal Fredbear is not actually what I first anticipated. I thought that it was going to be closer to Nightmare with a translucent body and more of a wisp mother-like appearance, but instead, Paranormal Fredbear by Taurus 4 on DeviantArt is terrifying. In essence, a Reaper Fredbear, this paranormal version is how I feel a Reaper Fredbear would look in the Final Night series. With endoskeleton bits holding together its melted and torn parts of not only the face but the body as well, and the movement it's just jerky enough to make you question it. You know, the long sharp claws can easily cut through flesh, and the teeth, while not sharp, okay, will definitely set you on edge. Get it? They're nearly human, but not quite human enough, which makes it terrifying, okay? It's like the original Sonic CGI. Not to mention the paranormal spring trap he made, but I gotta save that for another list. But ultimately, in number 2, Slasher Fredbear. Slasher Fredbear by DeviantArt user PlayStation Jedi is an unholy abomination that must be stopped, but also in the best way. I've talked about the Slasher animatronics before, particularly in an older Bonnie alternate versions list. However, Slasher Fredbear is so much worse, okay? He may not have a shotgun axe guitar, but oh my god. Let me read the description of this animatronic in the words of the creator PlayStation Jedi himself. Quote, "The largest and strongest of the Slasher animatronics, Slasher Fredbear is an unstoppable force with enhanced strength and durability. Fredbear is capable of smashing through walls, withstanding lots of punishment, and grabbing heavy objects then throwing them across the room. While Fredbear uses his great strength to pick up and rip people in half, if he needs a quick kill, he can extend a blade mounted on his wrist to cut through people like butter, or if he needs a ranged attack, he can use his 2 wrist-mounted light machine guns. Fredbear can also switch between these weapons on the fly, either using 2 LMGs or 2 blades, or 1 on each wrist." What the actual LMG, by the way, stands for light machine gun if you couldn't already infer that, but Jesus ever-loving Christ. Jesus ever-loving WH Christ the Third. Why? This is going to make me cry myself to sleep. Just when I was getting back to sleeping again normally. Not to mention the spikes that are also covering his body. And finally, in at number 1, Hellmare. This Hellmare version of Nightmare Fredbear is probably the absolute single most horrific FNAF-oriented thing I have ever seen. Like, I'm going to have to make a whole list about the Hellmare animatronics because this is the craziest ever. How did I not know about these before? Okay, Hellmare Fredbear can only be described as a true nightmarish abomination from hell, and you know what? The name is accurate. This thing has not one, not two, but 3 separate mouths, okay, 2 heads, and not only does it have 2 heads, those heads are reversed from one another. So one head is on top and the other head is on the bottom, turned upside down. So it can spin its head 180 degrees and give you either Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear. Yeah, this dude is both animatronics combined. Even Hannah Montana doesn't approve this best of both worlds. Once I noticed it, I might have actually peed my pants a little, okay? But 2 heads, 2 sets of 4-fingered hands, and half of these parts being nightmare themed. Look, I'm not usually scared when I actually talk about these things, okay? I might play it up for the camera and for entertainment purposes, you know, boom, hyper energy, but yeah, this is actually terrifying, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. I don't know what sadistic mother with this idea. The earliest one I can see is by Molten500 on DeviantArt, but I could be wrong. Either way, please make it stop. In at 10, Reaper Mangle. Reaper Mangle is absolutely terrifying. Some may just be scary because of circumstance, but Reaper Mangle comes from Final Nights 3 and 4. But I want to focus on the Final Nights 4 version, okay, since that one is actually terrifying. The one from the 3rd game just kind of looks like a Lego Duplo version of Mangle. In the 4th game, however, Mangle's face appears to be melted and decaying, as if it was chewing gum, but the gum was its face. And there is basically no exterior shell on this thing, except for the face. Slightly on the left arm, but oh my god. Honestly, you can only tell this is Mangle because of the name and the color scheme. Other than that, if someone looked at this only knowing Mangle by the appearance in FNAF 2, it would take them a little while before they actually realized who it was meant to be. The Reaper animatronics are terrifying, but they get far worse in Final Nights 4. In at 9, Chuck E. Cheese. No, I'm not kidding. Someone actually made Chuck E. Cheese canon in the fan FNAF world. I don't know what particular game he comes from, if any. I saw him on the FNAF RP fandom wiki page and just kind of cowered in my pants. He's just a recolored Freddy Fazbear and doesn't really have much other than a couple of images in the FNAF world, other than that, the one maybe, but like I'm sure you know what Chuck E. Cheese looks like, okay? Apparently, Chucky got sent to Freddy's as a guest star, but also started moving around at night. Well, since CEC, the parent company for Chuck E. Cheese, did file for bankruptcy, at least in part, this might actually come true, and if it does, if there is some form of FNAF Chuck E. Cheese crossover, I'm going to cry. There have also been reports of children going missing and animatronics moving after hours in Chuck E. Cheese locations, but these stories aren't true. And to anyone saying that the closed Chuck E. Cheeses should be redesigned into Fazbear locations, yes. Okay, you should go watch our videos, but also it may not be a good idea considering how many kids got stuff. But we made a whole video series about how they could do that. In at 8, Ignited Chica. Ignited Chica comes from The Joy of Creation, one of the most terrifying fan games ever. Scott's lucky that he didn't make this game, because if he did, nobody would play it out of sheer fear. Like, I don't know how horror junkies do it. Why do you like being scared? It's supposed to be a bad thing. Anyway, Ignited Chica is similar to the other Ignited animatronics, just a more decayed and rundown version of the original. And while Eddie may not be trying to get with this one, and I'm not really either, there is a clear reason why, okay? The jaw is gone, leaving only the top part of the beak and a load of exposed wire, okay? Half of her left arm is gone, and her entire right arm is gone, aside from like a little bit of endoskeleton, okay? And look at the feet. Like, oh man, Chica, like I can see your wiki feet score going down already. Okay, honestly, it's probably not going down. There are people who are into some really weird stuff. Like, I'm not kink shaming. I mean, I make jokes about banging a toy animatronic regularly, but like, it's not weird to them. It's only weird to people with a conscience. Moving on! In at 7, the BOA. The BOA is basically like another form of Mangle, but this time hailing from the Dormitibus universe. I say this is Mangle-like because of the multiple heads and exposed endoskeletons connecting them all. The 2018 updated version is far more hectic than the original as well, but it just seems kinda smaller. I don't know why, but animatronics that can kill me by biting my ankles off just put me off in a different way when compared to something like Foxy or Fredbear who could crush me with a snap. Like the little Freddies and the plush trap and then like the plush babies, no. No. And this thing doesn't make it any better, considering how it has 5 heads. The head of Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Mangle, Balloon Boy, and Toy Chica. Mommy, why? But it also has the hook from Foxy just chilling, ready to tear your face off and like then lay eggs inside your brain. I don't know, okay? The story for Domidibus is really messed up and I don't really quite understand it all. So I'm not sure what this thing is really going to do. And don't worry, this isn't the only Domidibus animatronic on this list. And at 6, Reaper Balloon Boy. Reaper Balloon Boy looks terrifying in both Final Nights 3 and 4, the only games in which he makes an appearance. Luckily. But as I said with Reaper Mangle, Final Nights 4 is where the creep factor really gets dialed up to 12. His face is melting and hell, even his balloon is showing endoskeleton, which totally blows my mind. And the propellers on his hats are just going nuts. The right hand of Doom got run over by a truck and his left hand looks like me trying to use chopsticks. But like at least you can tell that it's still Balloon Boy. Despite messed up attributes, I can't help but get weirded out by this thing. Like I swear as I was writing this, I had the picture up next to me. I saw him move towards me and then back away as I moved my eyes back, okay? It was a horrifying experience and I really need to make sure that I'm doing okay because I swear he just he tilted his head. Now, really, I get that his head is tilted to the right, but like, come on. And anytime I refer to direction, I mean from their point of view, okay? Because I learned my lesson with Bonnie. Halfway through into number 5, Scrap Puppet. I don't know why, but every version of the puppet intended to be scary just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't have puppophobia, but it does. First, the Reaper puppet, which I talked about in the first scariest FNAF animatronics list years ago, and honestly, it was the inspiration behind this video. And then the Havoc puppet from another video, and now we have the Scrap puppet. This was only a concept in fan art and doesn't actually appear in any fan game, but this wasn't the criteria, okay? This isn't top 10 scary FNAF fan animatronics that appear in games. No, it's fan animatronics. It's fine, although that is a good idea. No, it's just fan animatronics. And while some people may not be able to make a game for their creations, they can still draw them and give me nightmares for all of eternity. The particular image that I found has just like what looks like the beginning of a Scrap Puppet jump scare when you're salvaging them in FNAF 6, but obviously it isn't the actual game because the puppet was captured by Lefty. But this still sets me on edge with the tentacles coming off of it and like that creepy smile. Oh my god. In at 4, Ignited Foxy. Ignited Foxy is similar to normal Foxy, just with only a pelvis, thighs, a forearm, and a head. Relatable. Ignited Foxy comes from the joy of creation, the same as Ignited Chica, but Foxy is even worse. Normal Foxy already looks pretty torn up, considering how he's a pirate and all that, but the Ignited version is missing an ear and most of his flesh. Can I call it flesh? Should I be calling it flesh? I guess it's missing most of its shell casing. Both lower leg sections, his upper arm, his lower right arm, as well as his feet and chest are also missing, but the hook's still there. He's gotta have the hook. Arrgh. He has to keep the hook. How else is he gonna make those 1,000-degree hook videos where he like puts it through like flowering foam and then carves your eye out? His eyes glow white, and honestly, I don't know if you'll love this Foxy as much as you'll love the normal Foxy after seeing this, because it's terrifying. Like, holy hell. Getting close to the end in number 3, Havoc Freddy. What the f is this thing? Like, this thing has to be the most confusing form of Freddy that we have ever seen in any version of the game. St. Patty's Day Freddy, normal. Icicle Freddy, normal. What the hell is this? He looks like an even more canine version of Mangle with Foxy's arm in his mouth, holding a sign that says, "I look like a toaster with a slice of bread." And that's not a joke. I'm actually serious. He's holding an arm that is holding a sign that says that it looks like a toaster with a slice of bread. What? If the sheer confusion isn't enough to put you off, it's also missing an eye, even though it has another head attached to it, that it looks like the eyes were torn out of that too. Go find those eyes, my dude! Can you tell that this series of games is driving me crazy? Like, at this point, we've done more FNAF videos than I feel like anyone else on YouTube. There is over 450 FNAF videos in the playlist, and I've done the majority of them. I have done over a year's worth of FNAF videos. Penultimately, into number 2, Blank. The blank animatronic from Five Nights at Candy's and Five Nights at Candy's Remastered is actually very unique in concept, no doubt being inspired by Mango, I think though. He is a drawing attraction that is meant for children to write and draw wherever they want on his body. Over time, the animatronic was obviously withered down, and the withered version from the second game is where we'll be focusing for this number. Withered Blank is the most withered out of any of the animatronics. All of his suit parts seem to be damaged in one way or another. A large part of the left side of his head is gone, exposing his endoskeleton. His left forearm and right upper arm are missing their exoskeletons, and while his right forearm is completely gone, all suit parts below his knees are also gone, and there are 2 holes in his torso. One of the holes exposes an endoskeleton. His texture isn't even white anymore, rather more of a gray color, like the shirt you forgot to wash that just isn't the same anymore. Unless you use today's sponsor, I'm just kidding, we're not sponsored. Blank also can be seen unwithered in the first minigame, but he appears to be the same as he was in the first game, so yeah. But in Night 6 of the second minigame, the player also can see Blank's original appearance, which is actually kind of cool. It's a cool concept. And finally, in at number 1, Withered Glitch Trap. You can fight me all you want about my opinions on Springtrap, but there is no way that you can fight me on the fact that Glitch Trap isn't an animatronic. Firstly, he's just game code with no real world equivalent aside from William Afton and I guess technically now Burntrap and Vanny. Secondly, he was literally just a suit. You can tell by the fabric, the different design to the Bonnie we all know and love, kind of, and the stitching around his joints. But this version of Glitch Trap, specifically this one, known as Withered Glitch Trap by Shadow Foxy on Amino, is designed to be an animatronic, therefore it counts for this list. This thing is terrifying. Like, I've always had a soft spot for Glitch Trap. I hate this thing because like it gives me creepy bear vibes, if you know what I mean, like the old uncle. You know, it's an old meme, but it checks out. Anyway, I hate these kinds of things. And the way that Glitch Trap just like stands there and waves and then slowly gets closer to you as the player while you're slowly picking up these the tapes, you're also playing as a child in that game, indicated by your height when you load up the game. It doesn't sit right with me, hence why I avoid picking up the tapes, because I know that it's going to summon him. Now, with all of that said and done, this version is actually worse. The actual withered appearance along with the desaturation of the costume and the exposed endoskeleton is just, it's too much for me, and I can't do this anymore. I'm done! In a 10, Human Sunny Drop. Any human version of an animatronic is creepy, okay? Especially human versions of non-human animatronics. Like human Ballora and Baby, that's fine, they were humanoid to begin with. But humanoid Freddy and Chica, God no. This time though, Sunny Drop is in that kind of gray area. Like, it's kind of humanoid, but it's not based on a human. It's like if the sun was a person, and I've seen that before. Turning Sunny Drop into a human only enhances this idea further as well, since this guy straight up looks like Heat Miser from The Year Without a Santa Claus. This guy is about to fight to melt the North Pole and sing some damn catchy tunes, okay, even if he doesn't in Fahrenheit. Only 3 countries in the world still use Fahrenheit. Did you know that? 3. Out of 197 countries, only 3 of them use the imperial system. The US is one of them. You're one of 3 countries, come on, step up your game. Anyway, the human Sunny Drop or Sun Drop, whatever you want to call it, creeps me the hell out and makes me kind of cower in fear, okay? He's the kind of clown that asks you if you want to play games after your parents go to sleep and then is killed by Sam and Dean Winchester because he's secretly a monster. In at 9, Moon Drip. I never needed a FNAF animatronic to dress like a hype beast. And I don't know what it is about these damn security breach animatronics, but everything about this game is seemingly getting memed, okay? The Moon Drip animatronic, as they're being called online, are basically just hype beasts with the Moondrop face photoshopped over top, which is certainly one of the most basic fan versions, but it's still scary because I don't need this. I never needed to see a FNAF animatronic wearing Supreme merch. Like, why on earth? Why would someone choose to do this? Like, you willingly created this. I get the whole like Gregory Sus meme because let's face it, he vented and nobody can deny it. We were literally on cams when he did it, not even a joke. We were literally in a camera room. And I can get the whole like Vanny or Vanessa simping, trust me, I can get that. But Moon Drip? That's taking it too far. We already have Gregory being a little demonic Fazbear hype beast with all of his Faz merch, okay? We don't need animatronics to be goated with the sauce, alright? And a Statement Saturn Sundrop. Knitter.net user Statement Saturn Sundrop version posted on December 28, 2021 is certainly a beautiful bit of artwork. However, I believe the inspiration for this was the character of like Dream XD from the Dream SMP, or at least it seems that way, which kind of makes this scary. This version is very godlike in a sense, okay? It has like a floating sideways halo of sun rays and a really flowy outfit, but despite the character smiling, it still gives me the heebie-jeebies. And ever since my sister became scarily obsessed with the Dream SMP, anything of the sort triggers me. This dude looks like someone who'd watch people from outside the pizza joint and like creep up to the window and peek in. And I mean like really peek in, like only coming up enough so that he could see what's inside while trying to keep his body hidden and he's only showing his eyes. And if he couldn't get a good enough angle while he's on the ground, he'd crawl up the wall and then like look in from the top of the window. And if anyone calls him out for it, okay, he'd kill them, he'd off them in like a second, and then he would continue. That's what I think this dude's personality is like, okay? He doesn't interact, but he does like to watch from within the closet. And at 7, Internet Rule Moondrop. The rules of the internet are sometimes a glorious thing, okay? They can help you know what to avoid or what to search if you're into that kind of thing and your legal viewing age. However, when I just look up an animatronic and start getting some of the most famous internet rule of all time, that's an issue. This thing is literally just a personification of the moon. Why are you people so into that? Like there's even Springtrap art of this nature. And he's like a skinned human in a robot suit. How is it that people are simping over Springtrap and Moondrop, yet I'm still here single and unloved? I don't get it, honestly. Moving on, personifying the moon is one thing, but then giving it genitals and then causing it to do obscene things, just stop. This would have been higher on the list, like it would have been number 1, because this is the scariest thing that I've ever seen, but I wanted to tell people to cut it out sooner rather than later, because the retention always drops off near number 1 for some reason, even though it's the one that everyone wants to see. But hopefully, by doing this, I can cut it off at its legs. Stop it. Get some help. And at 6, Human Moondrop. The Human Moondrop is creepy for the same reasons as Human Sunnydrop. However, the biggest problem with the human version of Moondrop is that he's always creepier, okay? He's the emo brother that everyone pretends doesn't live at home. It's some of the absolute scariest damn human animatronic hybrid I think I've ever seen. And I've seen a human version of a baby Ballora hybrid combination animatronic. And that was some nightmare fuel, but this is even worse. Like no matter who's drawing it, any version of a Moondrop character is always a combination of like Jack Frost from Rise of the Guardians and ironically enough Snow Miser from The Year Without a Santa Claus. Possibly the Snow Miser thing is clicking because of the juxtaposition with the sun version of the character, but still. I think that this guy is, instead of like watching from outside, he's the guy who watches from the inside, sneaking in the shadows, like a creepy rogue stealth archer, but he's not shooting arrows, if you know what I mean. He's no. Halfway through, in at number 5, Chibi Sundrop. Chibi Sundrop is even worse than the human versions, somehow. Mostly because I feel like it's too close to a form of gacha life character and that just makes me cringe. It's scary not like in an appearance kind of thing, but just because this is what would be in my nightmares. Like don't get me wrong, okay, I would have to be on a lot of meds and would have to have an absolute metric ton of sugar to have this nightmare, but it's still possible. I doubt other people would consider this scary, which is why I'm putting it at number 5, kind of like halfway through, but I don't know why, okay? The whole chibi thing sets me on edge. It's just creepy. Like, why do you want these things to have eyes literally half the size of their head and so incorrectly proportioned? I don't like chibi designs, I really don't, and I can't tell you why. Okay, you just need to take my word for it. And at 4, Moon Man. Moon Man by ArtMama113 on DeviantArt is pretty damn haunting, and in a design way, not it's a bad way. Like, the artwork itself is great, and definitely better than anything I could do, but the creep factor starts with the fact that the eyes are glowing red, and one of them even appears to be smoking. No idea how this could happen, but hey, it's a thing. And the clothing design is also creepier than the normal Moondrop, just being like a whole galaxy. It's like Shane Dawson got a hold of the clothes when he was doing his like whole galaxying phase, and I think that the person doing it is already speaking to how creepy this is. With like the actual skin texture also being visible, and it looks like a moon, not an animatronic. Or some like very, very old and crusty cheese that really needs to be thrown out. Or as I would say, banished, being the Cheese King. But I think that the icing on top of the creep cake here isn't the smile that gives me a million different war flashbacks, or the shoes that make me feel like Cicero is on my tail, or even the tips of the fingers that for some reason are a deep, deep blue. Instead, it's the fact that this version of the Moondrop animatronic is saying, "Come closer, child, I'll make your death a painless one," which I very much doubt that you will, you sadistic. This guy looks like he enjoys torturing and then gets off on it. And like, why are you wearing a crop top? Great art though. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Statement Saturn Moondrop. The reason I thought the inspiration behind the Saturn Sunny Drop was the Dream SMP was because the Moondrop version was called Nightmare in brackets, whereas the Sunny Drop version was called Dream. Now that could just be a reference to how these characters would originate from dreams or nightmares, but I don't know, I just drew the parallel. Anyway, this version of Moondrop also just looks like a combination of the moon and Slender Man. Like, this man has 4 black tentacles that are coming out of his back, and honestly, he just looks fed up with everyone. He's slightly humanoid, which like I've said before is terrifying, and he also seems to have emo hair that's the same pitch black as the rest of his body. And he looks like the wizard that's been trying to get me to buy his magic. Wait, that guy probably isn't an actual wizard. But ultimately, in at number 2, Nightmare Sunny Drop. And considering how this is a Nightmare animatronic, I'm pretty sure you understand why that one was only number 3. Picture Nightmare Yawn and then just make it the Sunny Drop animatronic, and you have what Nightmare Sunny Drop is, in essence. Which makes him creepy as hell, because we all know how I feel about nightmare versions of puppets, okay? Normal puppets, not creepy, that's fine. But the nightmare versions that are meant to be creepy are definitely going to mess with me. And this guy is messing with gold, okay? Gold is my color, and we all know that. This creepy dude also doesn't need those weird buttons, okay? Like, what's the deal with those? Why are they so creepy? I don't know why buttons of all things are creeping me out. Like, it could be the torn body, or the ruffles around the neck or waist, or the fact that he has bells on his wrists, but no, it's the buttons. Why am I the way that I am? And don't even get me started on his bony little chicken legs. Those are even worse than mine. Are you serious? And that's saying a lot, bro. Plus, the shoes are just weird and creepy. Excellent job though, Living Corpse 7 on DeviantArt. Excellent job. And finally, in at number 1, Nightmare Moondrop. Yes, the Moondrop version is going to finish us off this list, because have you seen it? Man's is like the Nightmare Sunny Drop on roids, and then every other single illicit substance imaginable that would get us demonetized but also ruins your appearance. Like, see, this is why you should only have pharmaceutical drugs, and only when you need them, because what the Not only does he have the same creepy leg and body and arms as the Sundrop version, but somehow this man's shoes got bigger. I don't know, how? How? You're supposed to be the same thing with a different color scheme. How did your shoes get bigger? And suspenders? Really? That is a horrific fashion choice, and trust me, I used to wear suspenders, so I'd know. Not to mention the whole implication that this guy's watching me when I sleep, and his first words in game are naughty naughty boy, and then everything else he says would get me put on multiple watch lists if I said them out loud. And those claws? Like, the Sun version has them, of course, but like, they just look more menacing on this guy. Holy sweet niblets, Miley Ray Stewart.